This is our introduction to Brightspace and Zoom, sort of our combination workshop to both get us introduced to both Brightspace and Zoom. My name is Dave Edelbaum, and I work for the Student Learning Center. With me also today is Annabelle Archea and Christine St. Denis to help me with the chat. So again, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A for now. You should find it at the bottom of the screen, just so it's easier for them to kind of find and answer those questions. Also, if anything looks weird or sounds weird, try and let us know, but it should be all good. First thing I'll mention is that this is our combination workshop for this orientation. So we're trying to kind of get as much information to you about these two subjects. Because of that, we don't cover everything in crazy detail. So if you ever do want more help on these individual subjects, so if you want individual help on Brightspace or Zoom, I highly recommend checking out our other workshops. So if you'll see for this week, we have workshops on Zoom, on Brightspace, and also on email, where we cover kind of those one subject the entire time. So again, if you do need any more support with those after this workshop, I highly recommend checking those out. But the first half we're going to start with is Zoom. Basically just kind of the video conferencing tool we're using right now. Before I start with Zoom, we will talk about how to get your network account info, which is basically the info that's going to get you your school email and also get you into Brightspace. It's overall a very important account I recommend getting, because it pretty much gets you into everything, pretty much everything except for access. I think we'll need this account. If you don't have it, what you're going to do is go to the Algonquin College website. You're going to go to the very top and click on the current student tab and just scroll down a little bit, and you should find a button that says access. Click on that button, you will be brought to this login page you'll see in our right example. You're going to log in with your student number, and if it is your first time signing in, your password is going to be your date of birth in this format, this date, month, year, with the little dashes in between. If after you log in, it should prompt you to make a new password, which I highly recommend doing. If you have any problems logging to access, I recommend doing the forgot your password method first. And if that doesn't work, I would recommend contacting ITS. But if we are able to get in, if we are able to get in, what we are looking for, if you look on the left-hand tab, we're looking for the account section, and you should find just the guy we have, circled here, called network account info. Click on that, and we will see our user ID and initial password. So this user ID is our email as well. So our email is just this user ID with @algonquinlive.com at the end. And this will also get us into every other thing. So this will also get us into Brightspace with this initial password as well. Key thing I always like to point out for this account is that it's all connected. It's all one big account. So if you do change your password for one of those things, so if you change your password for your email, you will change your password for all those things. It will change your password for Brightspace as well. So very important thing to keep in mind. But with that network account info, we're going to move on and talk about, again, our first half. Our first half of the workshop, which is Zoom. So Zoom is a video conferencing tool. It kind of is the really popular one that everyone's using. So most schools are using it, most businesses are using it, and it's what we're using. It's what Algonquin College is going to be using. So it's definitely an important tool to get a hands on. So it's what a lot of your classes are going to be in. It's probably what you're going to be using to meet with students out of classes. It's what you're going to use to present stuff if you ever have to run presentations. And again, it's just a decently good tool for file sharing and collaboration. Generally just a very good communication / working tool. And it was definitely a good tool to get a hand on now because we'll be using it quite a bit. So what we're going to talk about in this training is we're first going to cover a bit of Zoom etiquette for how to kind of act in a call. We're going to cover how to create a Zoom account, basically with the main purpose of that Zoom account is to make meetings. We're going to talk about some recommended security settings for those meetings to keep them safer. We'll talk about how to make your own meetings to meet with students outside of school, then how to do screen sharing while in a meeting, and lastly for Zoom, how to record a meeting and then access those recordings after. So first thing we're going to talk about is just a bit of Zoom etiquette. Just for people who maybe people aren't familiar with, they may be not familiar with online video calling, or maybe just not familiar with it in a professional setting. First point I'd like to stress is just be very aware of your microphone. And basically what I recommend doing is getting into the practice of sort of muting your microphone while you're not talking. And when you want to talk, you then unmute yourself. Basically to do that, you're just going to find the mute or unmute button on your bottom Zoom bar. Now, one thing I will mention throughout this workshop is that this workshop is technically a different type of Zoom meeting called a webinar. So some of the settings I may talk about during this webinar may not be on your bar, because I think for this setting, basically only me and the other panelists are able to kind of turn on our camera and turn on our mic. So again, if I talk about this mute option, you might not see it down there. Again, just because we're in a webinar. Yeah, sorry, last point for that is basically we do recommend doing that because even if you aren't talking, people can produce just a lot of noise by just breathing or background noise or something like that. So again, highly recommend getting the practice of you mute yourself when you're not talking, and then when you want to talk, you unmute yourself. Similar point, I do recommend also using a headset, earbuds, something like that, just to eliminate background noise, and also just it can help you concentrate as well. We also recommend sort of dressing appropriately for whatever you're going to. So even if we are kind of comfortable at home, we do recommend if you are going to class or work, we recommend kind of dressing as if you were actually going there physically. Sorry. We recommend having a tidy looking background, and I think more importantly, have a non-distracting looking background. So just not a lot of weird things behind you or people milling about. If that is challenging for you, there is the option to have a virtual background, which is basically just a computer-generated background that kind of keys you out, which is quite cool. We highly recommend using your full real name while in these meetings, because I think we're kind of used to the anonymousness of the internet. Where it's not really the case for these calls. You're very much joining a class as you, and people want to know who you are. And it's also just going to be helpful for security reasons, because if they don't know who you are, they might just not let you in. Lastly, more of a warning than a tip. Most classes are going to want you to have your web camera on for most of the class. So when you join your class this week, be prepared that you might be asked to turn your web camera on and keep it on for most of the class. And so those are our main points for our Zoom etiquette. The next thing we're going to talk about is signing up for a Zoom account. Sorry, let me just quickly grab this link and I'll post it in the chat. There you go. Basically, I think I briefly mentioned before, but for a Zoom account, you get it is a useful account to have. It does have some useful features. The main reason you're going to need a Zoom account is to make your own meetings. You can join most meetings without one. If you ever want to make your own meetings to meet with students outside of class, at least one person is going to need a Zoom account to make this account. So I do recommend making this one day. You don't have to make it right now if you want to listen. I will also post my slides at the end of the session going over this stuff if you want to make an account on your own time. It's up to you. But basically, there's no special Algonquin way to sign up for this account. You're going to go to the Zoom website either by the link I provided, or again, just find the Zoom website, and you're going to find some sort of version of this sign up it's free button on the Zoom website. You're just going to put your Algonquin College email in there. Again, we highly recommend using your school email for this, and then click sign up it's free. It sends an email to your school email, or basically whatever email you've used. So you would go to your school email then, find the email from Zoom, click on that email, and you will just have pretty much a blue activation button in that email. Once you click the button, it will just ask you for a bit more information. It should bring you to a page very similar to our example in the bottom right. It was just asking for a first name, last name. Again, recommend using your kind of real full first name, last name. And then just wants a decently secure password, and it will kind of tell you what it needs. And that's pretty much it. It asks you right after that, do you want to invite colleagues or contacts? If you know someone, you can, but you don't have to. So you can just click skip, I think, in the bottom right. And at the very end, you can click, it will ask you, do you want to open up a test meeting? So pretty much a test Zoom call to try things out. If you're on your own, I highly recommend doing it because it's good practice. But after that, it's all done and your Zoom profile is kind of made and you don't have to worry about. It's something I recommend getting out of the way one day. With a Zoom account created, the next thing we're going to talk about is some recommended security settings, basically to make, we think are going to make your calls much safer. Again, if you don't have your Zoom account created right now, don't worry, I will post my slides at the end of the session to go over this for when you do have your Zoom account. For this, again, I've seen quite a bit of questions in the chat. Just to remind people, highly recommend putting your questions in the Q&A segment you'll see on your Zoom bar to make it easier for Annabella and Christine to answer those questions and keep track of them. So next thing we're going to talk about is the settings tab. For this step, I'm actually going to go into my Zoom account basically to make it a little, I think it's a little easier to see. But I'm on the Zoom website and I'm just going to click on my account. If you're not signed in yet, you would log in here. It would just say something different, but I am logged in, so I'm going to click on my account. So here's our Zoom account. And the main thing we're looking for right now, if we look to the left tab, is we're first going to go to settings. But in general, a lot of important stuff for Zoom is over here. And we'll kind of be going back to this kind of tab to the left here for a lot of our stuff in Zoom. But first, we're going to click on settings right here. And what we're looking for here is just about 4 settings we're going to kind of turn off or on to make your calls a little safer. First one should be near the top, just called waiting room. Basically, when people join your call, they will be put in a waiting room first. And then you as the host will see anytime someone tries to join your call, and then you will kind of get the option to admit them or decline them. We highly recommend having this on, and you'll know it's on if it's blue like this. You can just click this to switch if it's on or off. We highly recommend having this on, so we just consider it a very good security setting because basically no one is getting in your call unless you say so. You see who's trying to join, and you can let them in. Again, another main reason we recommend having your full real name because they see the name of the person who is joining, and if they don't know who you are, they probably won't let you in. Just under that, we have require a passcode. Just as it sounds, just an extra level of security. They also need a password to join the call, which can get automatically generated while you're making a meeting. And we'll go over that when we make a meeting together. Last 2 options, we're just going to use this kind of table of contents tab to skip ahead to we're in the security tab right now. And we're going to go to the schedule meeting tab. We're just going to scroll down a little bit, and these are our last 2 options right here. First one being allow participants to join for a host. What this means is that for a Zoom call, the call doesn't really exist until you, the host, joins it. So no one can join it until you join it. with this on, that's no longer the case. Anyone with the call can start the call. We recommend having this off, and again, you'll see it's off, it's gray, because basically the call is overall safer with you, the host there. And also this just clashes with waiting room. So this doesn't work if you have waiting room on because no one's there to man that waiting room. Our last setting is our personal meeting ID. Basically, it's a room that doesn't change. So the code to join the room never changes. And basically, once someone has an invite code to it, they can keep joining it. We recommend having this off kind of for that reason, because since the code doesn't change, the more people you invite to this meeting, the kind of unsafer it becomes, because anyone you invite to this meeting has almost permanent access to that call and can join it anytime. So we do recommend having this off, which will give you a new meeting ID for every meeting you make, making it kind of much safer. Yeah, and those are our recommended security settings. Again, just those 4. There's a whole bunch, so I do recommend maybe looking through these, but those are definitely the main 4 we recommend adjusting. Our next step we're going to talk about for our workshop is actually creating our own meeting. So again, we're going to scroll to the top of the page, and we're going to go to the Meetings tab first, just to the left here. First thing we'll see, any meeting we have created, we will re-find here. But more importantly right now, we're looking for this schedule a meeting button. Now it is also just up here if you want to quickly schedule a meeting, but again, it's also here if you want to kind of review your meetings. So we're just going to click the schedule a meeting button right here and kind of go through some of the steps. First, we just have the topic. So it's basically the title of your meeting. So what you're meeting about. We have the option to put a description if you think that's necessary. We have the actual scheduling of the meeting. So we pick the day on this little calendar first, and then we pick what time it is. You just pick the number first, then AM or PM. We have how long the meeting is going to be. And then we also have the time zone. I usually set it to Eastern time because that's the time zone that Ottawa is in, which is also where the school is. We have the option for a template, which is basically if you find yourself auto-picking a lot of pretty much picking the same settings every single time you make a meeting, you can save yourself some time and make that meeting into a template, and it would kind of auto-pick those settings for you. You just have to make a meeting first, and then you can make that meeting into a template, which we'll go over after we make this meeting. We have our password here. So again, it just gets automatically generated because we have that password option on, and just gives us a random set of numbers. And we also have our waiting room here. If we ever want to temporarily turn it off just for this one meeting, we can turn it off here. So if you wanted to use the join before host option, but again, I usually recommend having this on. I think it's a really good setting. We have our video option here, which is basically just referring to the starting state of everyone's web camera. So if I have it on, everyone will join the meeting with their web camera on, and if I have it off, everyone joins with their web camera off. But the key important thing to note is that nothing stops you from switching your web camera in a way. So if you have it all start as off, people can still click start video on their bottom zoom bar to then turn their web camera on. And that is generally how I recommend doing this. I would recommend having it off and then letting people turn on their web camera kind of on their own accord. So they're very much aware their web camera is on, and they don't have it on, they don't realize it. So that's just kind of my recommendation. We have our audio option, which both I think is always the safe option, but just explain it. Computer audio is whatever your computer is using. So your built-in microphone or your headset microphone, whatever is that. But there is the option to call in on a telephone number if you have neither of those things. So you'd use your telephone as well, and basically instead of joining the Zoom call, you would dial in on a certain number. If you think anyone's going to use that option, make sure you have the correct dial from down here. So make sure to click edit here to pick where people are going to call from. So I usually set it as Canada, but if you know someone's going to be calling from somewhere else, make sure to set that. And our last couple of options here, we have, again, allow participants to join anytime. So this lets our participants join without us before we join the call. Again, clashes with waiting room. So if you do want to use this, you would have to turn waiting room off. We then have mute participants upon entry, which basically everyone will join with their mic muted. I actually usually do recommend having this on. Same idea as video. I think it's better for people to kind of unmute themselves and be very aware that their mic is unmuted. And also, it kind of, if you have a kind of big call, it does eliminate background noise and kind of gets people into the kind of groove of muting and unmuting their mic when they would like to talk. We also have the automatically recorded meeting option, and we will talk about recording in just a little bit, but basically if you do want to record your entire meeting, you can click this option and it will start recording your meeting the second you start the meeting and stop the second you stop the meeting. So if you want to record the entire meeting, it can be a useful option. Last important option I would say for this meeting creation would be this final one called alternative host. I've mentioned a couple times that the host has a little more power and control of a call because they can mute people, they can share the screen right away, they can record right away, all that stuff. If you want someone else to have very similar power, you can set them as a alternative host. And all you have to do is put in their email that is attached to their Zoom account, and they will get sent a unique join code that lets them join join as a co-host. So again, if you are presenting or working with other people, it can be a useful option. But with all our settings picked, and if we're happy with this meeting, we're just going to click on save. And this is sort of our final page here. We can add this meeting to a calendar. We can re-find our password, but most importantly, we have this. This is our join code to send to people so they can join our meeting. So you're going to email people, message people, whatever is whatever is easier for them and you. If you want a more kind of legit invitation, we do have this copy invitation button just to the right of it, which gives you this kind of whole blurb. It gives you the invite, gives you the topic, gives you the time, gives you the code, gives you the password, and also the phone number to dial in. So you can just click copy meeting invitation. Again, paste that email, paste that in an invite in a meeting, whatever is easier for you. And then people have all that information. If you need to change anything about this meeting, there's always that edit button down here, which will reopen the options we just looked at. And again, if we liked these settings we picked, we're going to repick them again. We can save this meeting as a template. All you have to do is name it, and then we can pick that template when we make a meeting. It will auto pick all those settings for us. Now, last thing for meeting creation is just starting our meeting. And just we go over this because the first time you make a meeting will be a little different. Basically, you're going to start your meeting however you want. So you're going to click start this meeting up here. You can click start this meeting down here. You can click start this meeting in the meetings tab here. There's many places you could start it. It's all the same. But if you click the start button, and I will go back to my slides for this part. If you click the start button, it's going to prompt you to download the Zoom desktop app. It doesn't take very long. It's not a very big download. And when it is downloaded and installed, it's just going to ask you to log in one more time with that Zoom account. And basically, you just need this app and need to be signed into it to just be able to host calls. It's just what enables your computer to host these calls. So the app is useful. It's in our right example here. It's what it kind of looks like. I prefer the website for the actual scheduling and managing of the account. I think most people do. But basically for the app, the main purpose of why you need it is it just physically lets you host the call. So again, you just need to install it on your computer and you need to be logged into it. And those are main points on meeting creation. Our last couple of points for Zoom is a bit more of the in-meeting controls. First, we have screen sharing, which is basically just having something on your computer. So a presentation, PowerPoint, internet browser, whatever, having it open on your computer and letting everyone else see it. So for my workshop, I just have my slides open on a Chrome browser, and I'm just showing you all that. And that's pretty much the basic idea of screen sharing. There's two ways you can share content. First off, you would click the share screen button down here. You'll see we'll have circled. This green button, the little kind of stands out. And it will open up a tab very similar to this one in our example. And you'll have two main options for sharing content. The first one is right here called screen, which basically just shares whatever you see. If you see it, the person sharing, that's what everyone else sees. So if you have something open, they'll see it. If you're at your desktop, they'll see it. If you have a file open, they'll see it. Basically, whatever you see, they see. Can be useful, and it's the easier option. It's a bit unsafe because you're never 100% sure what you have on your desktop, personal information, security information, stuff like that. So we do recommend doing screen sharing a slightly different way, which is sharing a individual thing. To do this, you would have whatever you want to share open first. So have a PowerPoint open already, a Word document open already, internet browser already, whatever you want to share. And if you have it open, you're going to click share screen and you will see it here as well. It will get, if you have a whole bunch of things open, you may have to scroll down, but you will see in our example, I have just a Chrome internet browser open here. And if I click on that Chrome browser instead of screen, it will share that browser. So you'll see what I have open in the browser. You will see me move through the browser, but you won't see anything else. If I minimize out of the browser, you wouldn't see that. If I had other things open, you wouldn't see that. So you only see the one thing I share. And that is definitely how I would recommend doing screen sharing. It's much safer and you're very much in control of what people see. Besides that, other useful screen sharing option would be just to the right of screen called Whiteboard. Exactly as it sounds. Instead of sharing content, you just put a big blank whiteboard up, just as you would have in a classroom, that you, the host, can draw and write on if you want something just to brainstorm with. And the cool thing about it is that your participants can click the view options at the very top and click on annotate to then also draw and write on the screen as well, if you just kind of want something to brainstorm with all the students. So kind of a cool option. Our last point for Zoom before we go to Brightspace would just be recording your meetings. To record your meetings, first off, the host and the co-host are the only ones who are going to record at first, but they can give permission to other people to record as well. If you are able to record, you're just going to find that record button on your kind of bottom gray Zoom bar. It should just be a white circle like this in our example. And you'll be given two options. You have record on this computer, which downloads the video directly onto your computer, or record to the cloud, which is going to give you an online link to watch and share to your Zoom account. So again, that is something you'll need a Zoom account for, and that is where you're going to save it. Again, this is kind of something we'd go a little more in depth in our individual Zoom meeting, in our individual Zoom workshop, sorry. Click either one of those options and you will see that you are recording in the top left. And if anyone is recording, you will see, I'm pretty sure you will see as well in the top left that someone is recording a meeting. So you should be in the know. And those are our main points for Zoom. Again, if you do need any more help, we will post some resources at the end of the workshop. We do have some guides. We run an individual workshop on this as well, so it's a little more in depth and a little slower. We do have some recorded workshops as well. So again, any more resources we will post at the end if you do feel like you need more help for Zoom. But what we're going to talk about next is our second half of the workshop for Brightspace. Sorry, just gonna get a drink of water first. So, on to our second half of the workshop, we're going to talk about Brightspace. It's an extremely important tool. It's basically the side-by-side kind of partner for a lot of your classes. It's where a lot of your instructors are going to post their course materials and most of their content. And for most classes, it's going to be where you hand in a lot of assignments, do quizzes, a lot of your kind of graded stuff. Brightspace is something we've always used, even before the online year. But it's definitely way more important to kind of know and get a grasp on, because I think it's way more widely used than it ever has been because of the online year. First off, how to log into Brightspace. So you're going to need that network account info that we talked about earlier, that user ID and password. Again, it's the same info that gets you into your email. And then we're going to go to the Algonquin College website the same way we found access. And actually, we'll go over this physically just to show it off. But we're going to go to the Algonquin College website. We're going to go to the current student tab at the very top, and we're going to scroll down and find the Brightspace button. Click on that button, you will get a login page, as you'll see in our right example here, asking for your Algonquin College user ID and that password. So either that initial password, or if you changed it, it would be a new password. And let me actually kind of go through that step. So again, we're on the Algonquin College website. We're going to click on the current student tab here. We're going to scroll down and find kind of all these buttons here. This is overall a very useful page because it's where you're going to find access. It's where you find Brightspace. It's also where you find email, and it's also a good place to get in contact with the library or ITS. But for now, we're going to click on Brightspace. Now you'll see that it logged me in automatically. That is because I'm already kind of logged in on my email in this browser. As I've mentioned before, it's connected. So since I am already logged into my Algonquin email on this browser, in a way, I am already logged into Brightspace. So it can save you some time. But this is Brightspace, and we'll try and get through kind of the important content here. We'll start with the home page, kind of working our way down for what we think is important. First off, we have our courses. We can see those two places. We have our courses down here with kind of these pictured icons here. We can click on any of these courses to get more information on them. We also can find our courses up here on this waffle icon, just as a little drop-down menu. To the right of it, we have our kind of message alert tab. It's a place where we can kind of quickly send out emails from our school email. Again, doesn't really bring us exactly to our whole email, but again, if you're ready to quickly send out one, kind of an option there. Next up, we have our subscription alerts, which has to do with a certain type of assignment called discussion topics. Now, we won't get fully in depth on discussion topics in this workshop, but basically, if you were subscribed to certain topics, this is where you'd find it. Again, something we'd go a little more in depth on in our individual Brightspace workshop. Next to that, we have just a update alert, pretty standard sort of alert bell. If you're used to other sort of social sites, if you see a little orange dot up just kind of next to it, it means that something is new on Brightspace and it's worth clicking on to see what is new on Brightspace. Next to that, we have a profile. If you need to change any sort of profile settings or account settings, I highly recommend checking out this tab open. I think a very important thing to note here is you can update your notification settings, which is basically how Brightspace sorry, headphone went to sleep there. Should be fine now. Sorry, what I was saying that your notification page is basically how Brightspace contacts you and what they contact you about. Again, we won't go fully in depth of this in this kind of more quicker workshop. So again, more information on the individual workshop, but again, this is how you're going to customize what Brightspace emails you about. After that, we have our navigation bar. First thing we have is a calendar that gets sort of automatically updated by our instructor's Brightspace activity. So it's a very useful tool where you will see most of your most events from a class posted. Just a small warning about the calendar is that it is automatically updated. So if you do see your calendar is looking a little bare, I would recommend cross-checking it with your class outline to make sure it's accurate. So it's a useful tool. I wouldn't swear by it if it may be inaccurate. We have a tab to the Algonquin Library, so this brings you out of Brightspace into our online library page. We have a link to the student services. Basically, a lot of useful resources like Employment Center, academic help, we think that are useful to students. We have our digital resources, which will get us either software that is provided by the school for our program, or get us our book list, which will connect us to the Connections bookstore to find out what books we require for our classes. Lastly, for our home page, I'll point out is the event calendar. Basically a calendar with just either fun or educational events that Algonquin provides. They should be all online, and I think most of them are free, so I highly recommend checking them out. And we kind of continuously update this throughout the year, so I recommend keeping an eye on that. Those are our main important parts for the home page. The next thing we're going to talk about is just a actual individual course. So what I'm going to do is click on one of these courses. I'm going to click on this business law course because I think it's a pretty good example. And the first thing you're going to notice is everything has changed. It is all, sorry, let me. It is all individually about this course now. We have announcements about this course. We have a calendar again, individually telling us the calendar events for this one course. And most importantly, if we scroll up, you'll see that our navigation bar up here has completely changed with some new content. And we'll go over two of the ones which I would consider most important. Those being content and activities, I would say. Content, we'll click on this guy, is going to be the main sort of course material and just basically the main content that's going to be important for your classes. So if you look to the left here, you're going to see some sort of organization for this sort of content page. Again, it may not always have the 100% same wording as this example, but you should find something like getting started or course information. So we have a course information tab to introduce us to the course. We have a page about our instructor and then a outline and course schedule to kind of tell us what's going to be going on in this class. And I think most importantly is this kind of format for the content, this kind of week 1, week 2 format. So if I click on week 1, basically it's going to show us all the content that is either important for week 1, talked about week 1, or assigned on week 1. So you'll see we have an introduction to the course. We have the PowerPoint presentation that our instructor posted that day. We have a video they want us to watch. We have a discussion topic, which is a type of assignment. We have a checklist. And again, we have just another assignment that was assigned this week. So again, anything talked about or assigned this week, again, week 1, meaning the first week of school, should be here. And also a lot of this stuff is sort of preloaded. So if you do want to look ahead, you should actually be able to look ahead in the weeks, week 2, week 3, and onward, and see kind of what's going on in the future if you kind of want to keep ahead of the game. Now, you probably noticed there were 2 assignments in week 1, the discussion topic and the research assignment. You can mainly find the assignments that are anything assigned to you on the week they were assigned. You don't have to look through these weeks to kind of find out, oh, but like when was this assigned to me? There's a much easier way to keep track of that stuff, and that would be under the activities tab, just in the middle up here. Basically, most stuff that is graded that has a handing component or something like that, you will probably find here. So it's where you're going to find assignments due and how to do them. And this is also where you're going to be handing in those assignments, is where you're going to find discussion groups here, again, which is a certain type of assignment. It's where you can find your groups for group projects, and also where you can find online quizzes if those are assigned to you. Now, again, this is something we would go more individually in for our individual workshops on Brightspace. So if you want to get more in-depth look on each of these tabs, I highly recommend checking those out. But again, unfortunately, just for the sake of time, we won't go over all of these individually. But the last couple of tools we'll talk about that I do think are useful to students is the first one is the grades tab. So if you want to see how you are doing on a course, or basically just want to see what is going to be graded for a course, you should find that up here in our navigation bar. Again, just as it looks, basically anything that is graded we'll find here, and you can see how you've done it. So if you want to kind of keep track of your progress of a course, it's a very useful page. Last couple things I want to talk about is the first one is the a very useful tool, I would say, for getting in contact with other students if you don't have another way to do so, and that would be the class list. For this example, I'm going to go into another course just because I think it has a better example. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the class you want to find the class list of, so to find the students you want to get in contact with. So I'm going to go to this sandbox course here just for a good example. What I'm going to do is going to go up to my navigation bar and click on tools, and it should be your second option, just called class list. Click on this, and if you scroll down now, yours will be quite a bit larger than mine because it'll be a pretty much huge list of everyone in your class. But you will see the names of all the other students and also your instructor in this class. And the kind of main reason I'm showing this is that if you do click on their name, which should be a blue link, it will open up a compose new email box from your school email to their school email. So it's a really useful way to get in contact with other students if you don't have another contact method. Lastly, for our workshop is the Zoom classroom. Now, a lot of your online classes will have scheduled Zoom classes you're expected to be in. It's kind of up to your instructor on how they want to handle them usually. So they might just email you the links to the Zoom calls. But in most cases, your instructors are going to be using the Zoom classroom, which you access through Brightspace. So what you're going to do if you want to access the Zoom classroom is you're going to, again, make sure you're in the right course that you're trying to access the class of. You're going to click on Tools up here, where we found class lists, and you're going to click on the very last option called Zoom Classroom. Click on this, and it's going to bring you to a unique Zoom page where your instructors are going to post their links. So they should be organized in some way, so it should be clear on what one you're supposed to click on, but you should be able to click on the link, and that will let you join that scheduled Zoom class. Let me close this. And that is pretty much it for our workshop. So if people have any questions, we do have a bit of time to answer them. I do also have some resources I think that are very useful. First one I always like talking about is the getting started with our student survival guide, what it's called. It's basically a page we've made dedicated to new students of all this new information that is going to help new students with stuff on access, email, Brightspace, Zoom, textbooks. Click on any one of these tabs, and we have a introductory video and a bunch of links to help you with the subject. So I will post I'll post that link in the chat. I will also post my slides for this workshop, as I mentioned before, especially if you want to go over some of the settings that will appear in the chat just as a PowerPoint folder in just a second. And also, let me post this. And as I've mentioned quite a few times in this workshop, this is sort of our combination introductory workshop. So we weren't able to cover everything in supreme detail, though we do think we covered what is important for students. But if you do want to join the individual workshops, I did post the link to this page where we do have links to stuff to our individual workshops. So again, any questions, please let us know. We do have a little bit of time before our next workshop.